to the Token and Hobbs Show on the Roads to Liberty Network.
Hello, everybody. It is me, Cobra Commander, coming to you live at Tuesday night. I have killed that pesky Token and taken over his podcast. And because Hobbs is the cool one, I've decided to allow him to live. So, how are you tonight, Mr. Hobbs?
It's another glorious Tuesday in podcast land. Hello, Cobra Commander. How are we today?
I am very good. The Token is out of the way. I can take over the world now from my secret bunker in the heart of Papillion, Nebraska. Bet nobody knew that Cobra Commander was in Papillion this whole time. All right, on a serious note, this is my new paintball mask. I have just rediscovered the glories of paintball, and I want to show off my cool new mask for everyone to see. So I'm going to take this thing off now because it's actually messing with my hearing. Token lives! Woo! What is up, everybody? It's another fantastic Tuesday night. I am, of course, Token, not Cobra Commander. Sorry for all of those who are now dealing with anxiety because you thought Token really was taken out by Cobra Commander. Nope, I lied. Not true. I'm still here.
How are we going to trust anything you say from now on?
See, that was your mistake. You trusted things that I said to begin with. So never trust me again. That was your mistake. So I want a few housekeeping things. Unfortunately, my guest from last night, Dr. Kyle Varner, he is out road tripping Europe and thought that was more important than being on our show last night. I am very deeply hurt by this. Obviously, if you're road tripping through Europe and Roads to Liberty calls, you drop what you're doing and be on the show. That's what any sane human being would do. If I tweeted at Donald Trump and said, Donald, you want to be on Roads to Liberty? He's going to say, well, I was meeting with a Saudi prince to give him millions more dollars in money. But you know what? Since you asked so nicely, yes, I will drop that and come on your show.
The Roads to Liberty guys, they're great. Probably the best podcast ever. I love them. Seriously, you're going to love them too. Trust me. Believe me.
They're huge. Yeah, that's exactly what Donald Trump said to me. But I told the guy, hey, I don't think you're important enough to be on the Roads to Liberty podcast. We're kind of booked up for the next few weeks. So I don't know if we can squeeze you in. But maybe if you don't get impeached, maybe we can squeeze you in sometime. And maybe if you stop congratulating communist dictatorships for their rise to power and subsequent murders of millions of people, maybe we can have you on the show. We'll see. I can't make any promises about that, though. So, Mr. Trump, if you're watching right now, which I know you are, you got to fix that, man. No more of that. Oh, fun times, man. What do you want to talk about, dude? I got nothing. I'm looking at my notes. Thank you, Ben. Ben just pulled up a note. Cop finally sentenced for bullshit shooting. Now, all right, everybody. If you guys been watching or listening to the show for any amount of time, you know that we take issue with police who shoot people for no good reason and get away with it. We did an entire episode a few months ago now about the case of an Arizona cop who murdered a man in an Arizona hotel, murdered him. I say murder because it was indeed murder, was not only not convicted of the crime, but here's what happened. He claimed PTSD from the fact that he killed somebody, and now he is going to live the rest of his life off of taxpayer dollars from a disability that he received from shooting a man. So we were pretty angry about that at the time, if you remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we broke the video, because there's video of it. We broke down the video second by second and explained to you what was wrong. And we expressed some outrage, if you can believe it. and a member of our fine police forces not only being allowed to get away with the murder of an innocent man, but being paid to do so for the rest of his life by the taxpayers.
Not only being paid by the taxpayers with a disability pension, but his disability pension was more than per month than I make per month. And I work 10-hour days in a manual labor job. So wrap your head around that. I think that right there was just a nice little cherry on top of a shit sundae. That little slap in the face is what pissed me off the most.
And we make a point at Roads to Liberty, to be fair. Not every case of police shootings is unjustified. There are plenty of cases that have blown up in the media that were entirely justified. They exist, right? There are cases where people simply overreact to a justified shooting. That case that we talked about isn't one of those cases. And this case that we're going to be talking about today is also not one of those cases. So if you remember, it's been in the news quite a bit lately. A Dallas police officer by the name of Amber Guyton, she was on trial because she entered the apartment of a 26-year-old man named Botham Shem. They lived in an apartment building with an adjacent parking garage, and she went to the wrong floor. She went to the wrong floor and entered the wrong apartment. She entered the apartment of this man when she apparently did not notice that her apartment had none of her stuff in it and had all of the stranger's stuff in it.
Right. She was drunk off her ass. Let's put that out there, too.
Yeah, so she walks in, and Mr. Shem is sitting on the couch in the living room, eating a bowl of ice cream. Now, Officer Geiger claimed she feared for her life. She claimed when she walked in, he got up saying, "Hey, hey, hey," and moved towards her with a bowl of ice cream in his arms, apparently. This apparently caused her to fear for her life, and she drew her sidearm and killed the man with 2 shots to the chest. That bowl of ice cream was a deadly weapon, apparently. Very scary. Very scary in the hands of a large mid-20s black man. She shot and killed him in his own home. And she was arrested for this fact and charged with murder. And against all my expectations, the jury actually found her guilty, as they should have. It seems like a very open and shut case to me, because here we have a situation where a police officer, an off-duty police officer, went into a property she didn't belong. It was not her apartment. I don't even know how she got in. Apparently, he left the door unlocked, or he must have, because she just walked in. So yeah, murders a man in his own home. One of the funny things about these cases was the judge actually allowed the defense to use the Castle Doctrine as a defense of her actions. If you know the Castle Doctrines, it's meant to be a means by which homeowners can defend themselves in court when they are involved in a justified shooting. Someone breaks into your home, it's your castle, you're allowed to defend it from intruders.
Yep.
I agree with this policy. I assume you agree with this policy as well.
Absolutely.
I assume our friends that. Go ahead.
Yeah, with the caveat that it has to be your house, your castle.
See, there's that's the rub. I assume our esteemed host for the evening, Ben Backus, would agree with that doctrine as well. It doesn't need to have to be your house. It has to be your castle for Castle Doctrine to really be in effect. But apparently thinking you're in your house is good enough for some people to allow them to use the Castle Doctrine. But the jury saw right through this. They understood that you can't use the Castle Doctrine when you're not in your own home. You can't walk into someone's home and shoot them. She apparently claimed that she told the man to stop and put his hands up, but witnesses to the event, neighbors who overheard what was going on, never heard any verbal warning, just gunshots. So that claims to contradict her story. So it seems to me that justice, at least for now, has been done. Sentencing hasn't happened yet, but she was found guilty of murder, which seems to me an appropriate charge, considering that she just walked into someone's home and killed him.
Yeah. There's, I mean, a few things wrong with this, and one thing that's kind of gallows humor, so I'll get the gallows humor out of the way. The woman is drunk off of her ass. So drunk, in fact, that she doesn't even notice that she walked into the wrong apartment, and yet she's still able to do an accurate controlled pair on a moving target. That's better than most police shootings. Unfortunately.
Most
Now-
police can't hit shit.
Exactly. So maybe from now on, police should be drunk at all times while on duty.
Oh god, don't give them ideas, man. This is not something we want.
Right, exactly.
An entire police force drunk off their asses and armed to the teeth and given the authority to enforce the law.
Hey, I'm just saying, you know, it hasn't been done before. Maybe it'll work. Okay, but now that you know that little funny bit.
Well, here's the thing, though. You're right. It made her more accurate, but it didn't give her better judgment.
No. It did not.
So all you're doing is giving cops worse judgment and better accuracy.
Okay, yeah.
This is a bad idea, Hobbs. What are you thinking?
Okay, but the other thing is why was this woman carrying her sidearm in that intoxicated a state to begin with? That right there is a question that I haven't seen answered anywhere, and I don't think anybody asked. You know, if she was carrying her duty weapon, why was she? I mean, was she drunk on duty, or was she off duty and still carrying her gun around? Did she enter a bar or an establishment that serves liquor? There's some questions, and I'm sure that they were asked in the trial, and I'm sure that they factored into the guilty verdict, but I haven't seen these questions asked or answered anywhere. That's one of the things that anytime you go through a concealed carry class or you do anything with carrying a weapon in public, is if you are planning to ingest a single drop of alcohol, that gun is off your body, should be out of your ability to possess. You know, not locked up in the car. You know, you leave it at home if you're going to be drinking. You're definitely not carrying it on your person while you're drunk.
I saw the claim also that she was working a 12 to 13-hour shift that day. And using this as an excuse. So I worked long hours. I was tired. I made a mistake. I used to work 12-hour shifts quite regularly in the middle of the night. I used to wake up at 6 in the evening and go to work and work all the way from 8 p.m., I believe it was, to 8 a.m. It made long shifts, and you have to be there an hour early because I was a security forces in the Air Force. I was a cop in the Air Force, right? So I have training in a proper use of force. So I'm not just talking out of my ass when I say that. When I say that a police officer murdered someone, I'm not just some idiot talking out of my ass, even though I am an idiot. I'm not talking out of my ass, as a matter of fact. I have had training in the use of force, all right?
In a law enforcement capacity.
In a law enforcement capacity. Now, granted, military law enforcement and civilian law enforcement are different things, granted, but I've still had the training for when the proper use of force is. Where was I? I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. So I worked effectively 13 hours for 13 hours during a normal day of work, right? It was a 13-hour shift, essentially. And that's not even including if your flight leadership decided you needed to stay later for whatever nonsense reason, because they can make up whatever reason they want and you're in your sleep. All right. And that's not even talking about if you have an appointment during the day that you have to be awake for, that you were in your sleep cycle for, or if the commander, either the flight command, the squadron commander or the base commander decided to have a commander's call sure you had quite a few of those when you were in the military, where they just want to talk to everybody and ruin your sleep schedule as a result. So yeah, and suffice it to say, I have a lot of experience with being sleep deprived by the military by working long shifts, a lot of days in a row, and having my normal sleep cycle interrupted for nonsensical reasons. This is something that I've experienced for years and years and years at a time. At no point in time during my time in the military did I ever accidentally walk into someone else's dorm room. Never happened. Even after working long shifts at work. And I'm pretty sure if I did at some point accidentally walk into someone's dorm room, it would immediately strike me as odd that none of my stuff was there and that it had all been replaced by some other person's stuff. Some other person who is sitting right there eating ice cream and watching TV. This might strike me as an odd thing to happen. I might go, oh shit, I'm in the wrong dorm room. This isn't my place. I am so sorry, Mr. Person who lives here. I'll see myself out. This is embarrassing. What I wouldn't do is immediately pull out a gun and shoot the person. So I'm sorry, all these excuses that she was giving during the trial about how tired she was doesn't cut it.
And apparently it didn't cut it for the jury either.
Nope. Like, lady, you're a cop. You're supposed to be a professional. You are supposed to be given training that allows you to assess situations and judge when the use of force is justified or not. Apparently, you suck at this, and so you killed an innocent man, and for that, you are going to jail as you should.
Yep.
So
now, was the conviction for murder, or was it for negligent homicide or anything?
Nope, murder. Straight up murder. They charged the woman with murder, and now she's going to jail for that. So, I have my notes here. She faces prison sentence anywhere between 5 and 99 years.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing. I mean, I would hazard to guess that she's going to serve on the low end of that.
Yeah.
I mean, not just because she's a cop, but because even if she's convicted for murder, this isn't premeditated murder.
No.
She wasn't going out seeking this guy to kill him. She was stupid.
Yeah.
She was being incredibly stupid and negligent with the weapon and killed a guy because of it. Which is no excuse for that. You're supposed to be a professional. You're supposed to know when you're supposed to use deadly force, and you did it wrong. Sorry. You're a police officer. You should take the fall for that because it's entirely your fault that an innocent man is dead. But It wasn't premeditated. All right? Nothing I've read on the issue makes me think that she sought out this guy and killed him. So she'll probably get on the low end of that.
Yep.
Which, okay, I can live with that.
But she'll never be a cop again. Thank God.
Oh God, I hope not.
Never be able to own a gun again. Thank God. So.
But here's the thing that has me wondering, right? Here's the thing that has me thinking. I'm just thinking if the roles were reversed. Just think. Just ponder this thought for a minute. This Mr. Botham Shem gets home from work. He's carrying a legal firearm. He goes into the wrong apartment. There's a female off-duty police officer sitting on the couch eating a bowl of ice cream. He walks in, mistakes her apartment for his. She's this woman sitting on his property, shoots her two times in the chest. I wonder, does he get on the light end of a light end sentence for this? Killing an off-duty police officer?
I'm willing to bet that he'd hang himself in county lockup.
I would imagine that would be the case. I would imagine that he would be given the highest sentence possible, that there would be people saying that there is a war on cops. I would imagine that he would be roughed up pretty bad on the way to jail and that he wouldn't last very long once he got there. So this police officer, she's going to go to jail. She's probably going to get on a low end prison sentence, probably around the 5-6 year mark, which is, I like it to be longer than that, but that's probably what it's going to be. At least the conviction is there. But I'm pretty sure had roles been reversed, it would not be like that. He would probably go to jail for life, if not get the death penalty.
Yep. He'd be buried under the prison.
I mean, that's just the way it is sometimes. I mean, there's no way to prove that, but this is my gut hunch. People who kill cops, even by mistake, they don't do very well in prison.
Nope.
They don't do very well in the justice system. They are not given the benefit of the doubt that police officers are. And we see that time and time again. Police officers are rarely given sentences for unjustified killings. That's what makes this case specifically so monumental. This was one of the few cases where there's any kind of gray area at all, where the jury decides to convict and not let him walk. So, justice done in this situation. I'm glad it happened that way. I'm glad she is now going to jail. And yeah, we'll move on. All right. Ben wants us to move on for the cop case, so we're going to do that. 70 years of commie crap.
Yep.
So today marks the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the People's Republic of China.
Woo.
Yay! Everybody celebrate. Woo! Yep. People's Republic of China, one of the most repressive and deadly regimes to ever exist in the history of mankind, just turned 70 years old. And to be fair, they are substantially less evil and deadly nowadays. At least they're not causing the deaths of 50 million people today. I mean, I'm not saying they're less repressive, but at least 50 million people aren't dying right now in China. That's an improvement, I think.
Yeah.
You got to give some credit where it's due.
Yeah, you know, why kill your people when you can just monitor every single thing they do under a social credit score system and, you know, tax them and have them work under slave labor conditions and produce all the cheap, possibly toxic crap for the world market.
So why are we bringing this up today? Why is this something that we felt the need to mention?
Because you always want to take every opportunity you can to dunk on communism.
Well, yes, that is, you know what? There doesn't have to be any other reason than that. Fuck communism. No, I wish a certain leader of the free world would have taken the opportunity that today presented to also dunk on communism. I really wish that. But instead, our illustrious President Donald Trump had this to say about the 70th anniversary of a totalitarian, murderous regime taking over in China. He goes, "Congratulations to President Xi, how do you pronounce that in Chinese? I don't know. Xi. And the Chinese people on the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. Hot damn, our president is congratulating the Communist Party of China taking over the country."
Yeah. Okay, so unlikely, but this could be an ironic post like what he posted about Greta Thunberg last week when he said she seems like a happy young lady full of life or ready to pursue a long and happy life or something like that. You know, could be, but in this case, I'm highly doubting it.
I'm highly doubting it as well. I've seen a lot of people claiming this is a troll post.
Yeah.
That's not how you what? No, he just straight up congratulated. What this is Donald Trump buttering up the president of a foreign nation, because that's what he does. He butters up dictators in the hope that he can get a sweeter deal than he might otherwise get. He did this to Kim Jong-un a lot. All right? He wasn't being ironic then. He was buttering him up to try to get a sweet deal and get that country to denuclearize.
Right.
And now he's buttering up. So why is this such a big deal? Because he specifically, I gotta find the tweet again. I got it in there. Specifically, he congratulates the China and the Chinese people on the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the People's Republic of China. Now, what's so wrong about that is the People's Republic of China, when the Communist Party took over there, caused a massive amount of death and suffering in that country. I mean, we have the graph on the screen right now. You can see the orange line is the birth rate in China, and it plummets in the years that the Great Leap Forward starts. It just drops. You know, it looks like a stock exchange, right? It looks like, if you're looking at it, it looks like the 2007 recession. It just plummets, just goes down. And the green line is the death rate in China. And you can see before the Great Leap Forward starts, it's on a downward trend. It's high, but it's going down. Then whoop, shoots up right as the Great Leap Forward starts. So we're gonna give a little bit of history of the Great Leap Forward. Now, no, we're not historians, but I'm gonna give a little bit of context of what happened in the Great Leap Forward and why no person who values freedom in any way whatsoever should be congratulating the Chinese people, who are the victims of the Great Leap Forward, should be congratulating them on the takeover, on the ascension of a totalitarian regime that exists to this day. So the People's Republic of China was declared on October 1st, 1949, after the nationalist government led by Chiang Kai-shek led to Taiwan with his army of 600,000 and 2 million refugees. Now,
after the United States fucked him over.
I don't know everything about the Civil War, so I'm going to assume that's true.
Yep.
But the United States did send naval forces to sit between in the Straits of Taiwan to prevent the Chinese government from invading. So at least that's something, right? That's something. So from 1958 to 1962, the People's Republic of China, led by Mao Zedong, launched the Great Leap Forward. The goal was to transform China from an agrarian society into an industrial one. Huge amounts of resources were diverted from agriculture into industrialization, leading to failures and starvation. Private farming was prohibited, and farmers were all forced into giant communal farming. The Great Leap Forward saw one of the only times in modern history where the Chinese economy actually shrank. The state instituted a system of compulsory state purchases of grain at fixed prices. This, along with high levels of taxation, ate up around 30% of the nation's grain output, much of which was exported to the USSR. So we see a trend when it comes to famines in communist countries. Millions of people dying while you export food to foreign countries. The same thing happened in the Soviet Union during the Holodomor. Ukraine starved while the USSR exported grain to Western nations in order to gain capital to industrialize their nations. Same thing happened in China.
Yep.
So huge amounts of exporting grain.
Well, I'm just gonna throw in a story about that too. Whoa, there's a cat in here. During the Great Leap Forward, they thought that sparrows were eating too much of the grain in the fields. So the communist regime decided, you know what, we're going to get rid of all the sparrows. So every little peasant throughout the countryside was spending their free time killing sparrows. Well, they get rid of all the sparrows, and what do sparrows eat besides grain?
Insects.
So then, this is contributing to their piss poor farming already. There were no sparrows in the whole country to eat the insects. So the insects just ran rampant in the fields. You know, it's stuff like that when AOC comes up with an idea, it makes me think of the communists killing sparrows.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the British in India setting a price on the head of snakes. And then Indians, getting wise to this, decided to breed said snakes so that they could cut off their heads and sell them to the Brits. Now, once the Brits figured out what was going on, they decided to stop the practice, which led all these Indians who had bred all these snakes to just release them into the wild, meaning that they ended up with a huge snake infestation, much bigger than they had before implementing this policy. This is what we call unintended consequences. You know, politicians think they have a bright idea that's going to save the world, and it makes everything worse.
Yep.
Just like the snakes in India and the sparrows in China. So, where was I? All right. Mao saw steel production as one of the major goals of the Great Leap Forward, forecasting that China would surpass the UK in steel production shortly after its implementation. Now, we know that the UK back in these days was a huge steel producer. So Mao was thinking that they were going to pass UK in steel production. To accomplish this, rural workers were put to work in backyard furnaces.
Yep.
Workers were diverted from farming to work in these furnaces. They produced nothing but low-quality pig iron of little to no economic worth. Now, intellectuals in the country could have told Mao this, that you can't produce quality steel in backyard furnaces. You need high-end factories to do this. But Mao, being the communist that he is, didn't trust intellectuals and murdered a lot of these intellectuals. So all the people that could have told him that you can't just make a furnace in your backyard and make steel, they weren't there for one reason or another to tell him this was a bad idea.
Yep, and that's it's insane that it seemed like during the Great Leap Forward that the Chinese communists were less concerned about the actual end state of what they were making, and were more interested in like having a dick measuring contest with the rest of the world. It's like, oh, we're going to produce more steel than England, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, but all of the steel sucks. You know, if you make a lot of shit, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's exactly. China never produced anything other than garbage as long as they were making these backyard furnaces, and that's predictable. You know, if it was easy, if you could make steel in your backyard, people would do it. But turns out you can't. You can't just put an oven in your backyard, melt kitchen utensils, and make iron out of it. You can't do it. It's not possible.
You can, but it takes a lot of skill and a lot of very hard work. And if you're on what essentially is subsistence living, where you're farming your own food in your own backyard, you don't have the time and the calories that it takes to invest in smelting down, especially the way they were going at it was raw iron ore, trying to smelt it down into usable iron. You can't do that on an industrial scale with millions and millions of backyard furnaces and expect any degree of quality. You need a metallurgist. You need people who are experienced in the manufacturing process. You need quality control inspectors. And, you know, there's just this entire logistical chain that if you just cut that out and hand somebody a couple tons of iron ore and say, make me some iron, what do you expect is going to happen? You're going to get garbage quality.
All right, so moving on, the failure of agricultural policies, the movement of farmers from agriculture to industrial work, and weather conditions led to millions of deaths from severe famine. Many also died from quota-based executions instituted by government officials. The economy, which had improved since the end of the Civil War, was devastated. In response to severe conditions, there was resistance among the population. Now, how many people exactly died in this famine? Well, there are no exact numbers on how many died. It's this estimating the number of deaths like in an event like this is very difficult. But the lowest estimate that I could find was around 18 million. And the high end of the estimates fall around 56 million. Now, if you take the median between that is around, I don't know, 30-ish million, 30-something million. That would make it the most deadly famine in world history. Think about that. In world history, going back to the days we had to farm entirely by hand and machinery didn't exist to help you. they had better. They didn't have as bad as famines as the Chinese did post World War II, and they didn't have, and even the Ukraine in the whole Holodomor did not have as bad a famine as communist China did. It's absolutely disgusting. Due to labor and resources being diverted from agriculture to other projects, much of the harvest was let to rot due to a shortage of workers. So all these workers are out building construction projects for the Chinese government and making pig iron in their backyards. What are they not doing? Harvesting the grain. Despite this, local officials competed with each other to report the highest crop yields. Now, what happens in a communist government when the leader, the dear leader, says you must make this amount of food? And what happens to the poor sod on the ground that has to report that they didn't meet the quota? You want to guess what happened to them? Bullet to the head, my friend. They did not survive. So what would you do if you were one of these poor souls and you didn't have the crop yields that you were mandated to have? Might you lie about this? Might you say that you... Are you muted?
Yeah.
There you go. Sorry.
All right.
You might lie about this. You might say that you had enough crops, and you might report it wrongly. And what does this do to the people that you're reporting to? Now they think there is more food in existence than there actually is. So you're reporting you grew, 10 tons of corn, where in reality, there's only 2. Now the people above you think that there is 10 tons of corn. So they're going to take a whole bunch of corn away from the peasants working in that field, put it in the cities, and export it to foreign nations. This leaves jack shit for the poor sods on the ground who actually have to grow this food. Now they have nothing to eat. Now they are starving to death.
Yep, the old joys of centrally planned economies. When your choices are lie and starve to death later, or tell the truth and get executed now, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place.
And this is where the price system of a free market economy really helps things. And if there's a free market on food, places that have shortages will people there will be willing to pay a higher price for that food. The price will go up. This is what happens when natural disasters occur in the United States. Everybody wants to complain about price gougers, but prices serve a market function. When prices go up, what does that do? That sends a signal to people who have supply to meet that demand. Right. They want to get the best return on their goods. So they see the prices are going up in a certain area. That means that place has a shortage of something. There is more demand than there is supply to meet it. Therefore, the price of that thing goes up. In a market economy, food would flow from places that have surpluses to places where there are shortages. It would flow from the cities, which just got all this food, back to where they're needed.
Yep.
But because this is a communist country and there is no free market there, it flows from the peasants to the cities and overseas where they export it, and none of it comes back, which means that all these rural peasants in the middle of China growing all this food, they have nothing. And they have nothing and they starve.
And because it's a centrally planned communist economy rather than a market economy, all of the money that's coming back into the country from those food exports is going straight to the government and not to the people who actually grew the food, so that they could then turn around and use that to buy food for themselves. But since they're not getting that money, the government's getting that money, they're left without a pot to piss in.
Exactly. And by this time, China had collectivized all the farms. Private farming was illegal. It was not allowed, and all the private farms had been seized and communalized. This means that farmers were not able to grow their own food, to sustain their own lives and their own families. Everything they grew went into a central pot. which the government then came and took to use for their own purposes. So none of these people were able to grow their own food to sustain their own lives. And people were there were reports of cannibalism during the Great Leap Forward. People were eating bark, clay, even coal to sate their hunger. Apparently, when you eat coal, it can sate your hunger. You're not going to drive any nutrients for it, but apparently it can stop the hunger pangs. So people in China were doing this.
It's something in your belly for your gut to work on. It's not gonna actually nourish your body. You're still gonna die of starvation, but it's gonna be a slightly less painful death, I guess.
I mean, that's the thing about it. This is what happens in communist countries again and again and again. It's not just China. It was Vietnam. It was Cambodia, Cuba, the USSR, Eastern Europe after the fall of the Nazis.
Venezuela, right fucking now.
That's not real socialism, dude. What are you talking about? We're not allowed to call that socialism. Socialism doesn't exist when it's failing. And Venezuela is not an example because I remember a time when Venezuela was doing really, really good. I'm old enough to remember that. It was like 4 years ago or so. Not very long ago.
Oh, not very long
ago. They were doing really freaking good. And all of these leftist rags were bragging about it. Oh, Venezuela, they're the greatest example of a centralized economy, socialism in action. And what happens the second it fails? Not real communism, not real socialism.
Yep. See, that's the thing about socialism is that it always works right away for a while until you run out of other people's money. Like Margaret Thatcher is the one who coined that term. She's like, socialism's great until you run out of other people's money. And it takes a little bit. You look at what's going on with the NHS over in England right now. The NHS has been around for 60 or 70 years, had a great long run, great motive, still socialism, falling apart right now. Same thing in Canada. You've got these stories about, Americans are going to Canada to buy cheap prescription drugs because of their universal health care. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they can have cheap prescription drugs across the border in Canada because all that R&D is subsidized by the high prices that we pay here in America for those drugs. What you never hear about is the Canadians who come down to America to get surgeries that they need right now, that they can't wait 6 months on a waiting list to get. You never hear about those stories, but it happens all the time.
It sure does. And this is the failures of centrally planned economies. It always does this. All right. And every single time you hear that it wasn't real communism or it's not real socialism, we should give it another try. It'll do better next time. Everyone thinks that they're the magic man to make it work.
Right.
You're not.
That is the height of arrogance and hubris to think that a system which has killed over 100 million people in the last century was flawed because the only missing piece was you. How far up your own ass do you have to be to think that?
See, the policies of the Chinese government are among the most destructive in history. The 70th anniversary of their ascension should be remembered somberly, with reverence for the victims and scorn for the people responsible. It should not be congratulated by our president. No. What a golden opportunity to point out the evils and the destructive nature of communism, and instead you choose to congratulate it.
And let's not thank you, Ben, for putting that up, because that segues very nicely into what I was about to say. Not to mention that it's a huge thumb in the eye to what's going on in Hong Kong right now.
Ben, can you pull up the video of it? Because there's actually video of the protests happening in China, where a Hong Kong protester was actually shot by a live round by the police there. Violence is indeed escalating over there. It has not calmed down. The protesters are not giving up because they know what's going to happen to their freedoms if the mainland Chinese government is allowed to take control of Hong Kong. They know that their market economy is going to go away. They know that their freedoms are going to go away. Their freedom of speech, gone. Freedom of the press, gone. Freedom to vote, gone. All the unique freedoms that people in Hong Kong enjoy due to the special relationship that they had with the United Kingdom, that's all going to go away the minute that the mainland Chinese government takes over there, which is very sad considering that it is such a vibrant and market-based economy that they have there. So
yeah, they're like the Wall Street of Asia over there, and that is, it's not only just for the 7 million people that live in Hong Kong that's going to suffer. That a communist China taking over Hong Kong would be as tragic to Asia, I think, as if communists suddenly took over the entire banking infrastructure of Wall Street here in the United States. It's going to be catastrophic for more than just Hong Kong. But yeah.
So I got the video. I gotta get Ben the video. But yes, we have a video. It's of a Hong Kong protester being shot by the Chinese government. There it is. I found it. Ben, I found it for you. There it is. Boom. He's my guy. Ben, you're my guy. You're my guy. You got to bring up the video. So yeah, like I said, Donald Trump had a golden opportunity to call out the evils of communism, didn't do it. And it's very funny because I point this out. I posted his tweet on our page and called him out on it. And all I get is people defending his tweet on that. Like, do you not expect us to be anti-communists? Like, we hate communists on this podcast, on our page. We make no bones about it. We hate communism. It is evil. It is wicked. It should be destroyed. So when I see a president of the United States congratulating the communists in China on their ascension in that country, it makes me a little upset. I don't like seeing that, Yeah. Perhaps we shouldn't. Perhaps the president shouldn't be doing that. Okay. So let's move on a little bit. So there was a case out of Connecticut, I believe it was.
Yeah. Hey, Nathan, those videos, they don't actually show the shooting. I don't know what's going on. It's like they edited it. They're not showing it on the mainstream sites. I couldn't find it on YouTube either. Did I go right up to it before they get shot?
I sent it to you on Messenger. The video I was talking about. It's a clip from CNN, and there is actually a clip on there of a protest. I mean, I can share screen. Let's see. Boom. Chrome. Protesters share. Here we go. Now, if it will ever buffer, thank you very much. All right, so Allstate feels the need to put their stupid ad in front of my protester being shot video. So I'm going to mute that so that we don't have to listen to it.
Here, I got it, Nathan, right there.
You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Well, I tell you that new Watson, that reportedly a protester has been by a live round.
You can see that the police officer is pointing what looks like a revolver of all things at a protester and shoots him right in the chest.
Yeah.
Right in the chest. And this is the escalation of violence that's going on in Hong Kong right now. This is what Donald Trump chooses to congratulate. All right, so I think that's all we have to see on that right now. Thank you, Ben, our esteemed producer of the show.
I just want to interject here that I really love having producer Ben in the background. It makes things go really smoothly. So kudos to you, Ben.
All right, moving on to fake hate crime. So this is a story out of Connecticut. A sixth grader student who last week accused 3 classmates of forcibly cutting her dreadlocks has admitted she made up the allegations, according to her family and the school principal. Amara Allen, a 12-year-old African-American girl, had accused 3 white boys in her grade at Emmanuel Christian School in Springfield, Virginia, not Connecticut. That was my bad. She said that they held her down on the playground during recess, covered her mouth, called her insulting names, and used scissors to cut her hair. This was apparently all made up. There's an apology by the parents that reads, "To those boys and their parents, we sincerely apologize for the pain and anxiety these allegations have caused. To the administrators and families of Emmanuel Christian School, we are sorry for the damage this incident has done to trust within the school family and the undue scorn it has brought to the school. To the broader community who rallied in such passionate support for our daughter, we apologize for betraying your trust." The principal of the school, Stefan Danish, had this to say: "We can now confirm that the student who accused 3 of her classmates of assault has acknowledged that the allegations were false. We're grateful to the Fairfax County Police Department for the diligent work to investigate these allegations. While we are relieved to hear the truth and bring the events of the past few days to a close, we also feel tremendous pain for the victims and the hurt on both sides of this conflict. We recognize that we now enter what will be a long healing season." So another case of fake hate crimes perpetrated by somebody. I don't know what the motive here was. I wasn't able to find a motive to make a fake hate crime.
Well, the motive is that victimhood is the coin of the realm these days, and it just if you can be more oppressed than the next guy, then you win. We are living in the days of the oppression Olympics, and unfortunately for a lot of these hoax hate crimes, they are just so bad at pulling it off that, yeah, there's Juicy Smouillet there.
Oh, excuse me. Juicy Smouillet.
Yeah, it's like, if you're gonna try and fake a hate crime, at least put in the effort to make sure that it's airtight before you go out there, because especially if it's like a white on black hate crime, you got to know that it's going to get national attention, no matter, this is what, a 6th grade girl talking about getting jumped and getting her hair cut off, and that shit was
having racial slurs thrown at her.
Yeah, that shit was in the New York Times. It's like, in any other time, it would have been a local news affiliate story only, and it would have ended there. But because we're in the oppression Olympics, it got national attention. But because she was 11 and not exactly a criminal mastermind, there were a whole bunch of holes shot in the story immediately. So, fuck it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it. I mean, we talk all the time about how biased the media is and how their tendency to jump on fake news stories. Their tendency to believe anything that makes white people or conservatives or non-leftists in general look bad. But they don't fact check. They don't look deeper into the story. They just report stuff as fact and try to ruin people's lives as a result. And it turns out that this whole thing was apparently made up.
Imagine my shock.
Imagine my shock. And you know what? At least this girl has the excuse of being, I believe she was 12. I believe she was 12. Not exactly a criminal mastermind. Probably her first fake hate crime. Jesse Smouillet.
Juicy.
He's French, apparently, according to Dave Chappelle. I believe Dave Chappelle. So, Smouillet, Juicy Smouillet, is a Hollywood actor. like, stick to acting, dude. Apparently, he can't write worth shit, and he can't produce worth shit because he couldn't come up with a believable story, and he couldn't get his actors to stay on script.
Right.
So I hope nobody ever hires this guy to produce or direct anything, because clearly he's very bad at that.
It's like, the treatment was Academy Award material, But the production sucked, the acting sucked, the directing sucked. It's, just everything was tore up from the floor up.
Yeah, but see, it still would have gotten an Academy Award because of the subject material.
Correct.
Absolutely. All you need to win an Academy Award is a story about race. That's all it takes. Doesn't even have to be a particularly good movie.
Right.
Doesn't have to be well done, well written, well acted, anything. It just has to be about how bad white people are. Literally that's all it takes.
Introducing Woke the Musical.
Oh, God, that would be the worst musical ever. All right, so you had a topic you wanted to talk about. 2 years since the shooting in Las Vegas, and we still don't know what happened. Just like we'll never find out who really killed Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, we'll never figure out why this crazed individual in Las Vegas shot a bunch of people.
Right.
So this is something you want to talk about, man, so take it away.
Well, if anybody remembers it, and I will forgive you if you don't remember it, because it was a huge story for like a month, and then it just went down the memory hole, and nobody seems to know or care exactly what went on at the Mandalay Bay shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada 2 years ago. For those of you who are living under a rock or just don't seem to have an attention span longer than that of a goldfish, the official story is that a 64-year-old man carted about 24 AR and AK style rifles up to a hotel room, busted out a couple of windows, and then proceeded to rain fire upon a concert across the street from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. That's the official story. They have no motive. They have no idea why he did what he did. There's things like missing security camera footage, paper trail that seems to be non-existent. The guy is absolutely scrubbed from social media. There's like 2 pictures that you ever only saw. One of them, he had like this retarded look on his face with his eyes closed, and the other one looked like it was about a 15-year-old picture of him where he still had color in his beard and his mustache. When he actually did it, he was gray. The old picture, he still has color in his facial hair. So there's only like 2 pictures of this guy that actually exist. He's non-existent on social media. He apparently has all of this money that he supposedly made off of real estate dealing and gambling. He was apparently some kind of like Mensa level genius that knew how to read cards and won a shit ton of money at blackjack that's the retarded picture I was talking about.
Hey, you can't say that word, man. You're gonna get us in trouble.
Retarded.
Oh no! The Zuck is coming for us right now.
No. So, anyways, the official story was that that guy in the picture right there, managed to get like 20-something AR-15 and AK style rifles with bump stocks and like high capacity magazines, like 60 and 100 round magazines, got all of this firepower up to this room, guns that he had all purchased within like a year of the shooting, busted out 2 windows and just shot people, and nobody knows why. And that is where they left it. Now, I sent a video to you guys earlier. It's about 8 minutes long if you cut out the commentary at the beginning and ends, and it's from my favorite source, Infowars, and
I keep telling Hobbs not to do this, but he can't help himself, so I'm just gonna let him do whatever he wants.
Right, but it laid out a lot of.
No, I'll give you. It was a very interesting video. There's a lot of stuff in it that I didn't know.
Me neither.
Right.
Yeah, I just heard it today. Talk about this an angle with an internal covert civil war going on within the Saudi royal family, and somehow this guy ended up being the patsy. Apparently there was like an assassination attempt on Mohammed bin Salman a few floors above where this went on, and that went sideways, so they had to find some way to cover it up. And it's like, oh, let's just shoot a bunch of people at the concert across the road. And then like a week after this happened, bin Salman arrested his cousin and his, I think it was his finance minister over in Saudi Arabia on corruption and money laundering charges. There's this whole deep dive. I'll find it and maybe post it to the Roads to Liberty page.
No, dude, remember Facebook freaking zucks people for stuff like that.
But this is off of that new ban.video. I don't think they're being zucked yet. So
Yet.
We
already have like 5 strikes against us. We're apparently fake news.
You have 5 strikes against you.
it's all me. I keep getting zucked.
But yeah,
I'm
let's
sorry.
but if I could, Ben, do you remember when this first kicked off? This is when you, me, and Mike we talked about it on one episode, and there were a couple of theories that you and me and Mike were floating around. Do you remember what we all talked about on that?
The multiple shooters, because you could hear the cyclic rate of the machine gun.
Yeah, from different angles, and some of them sounded different.
Yeah, and you could hear them sound further away and
there's
closer. And
yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. I mean, nothing was really known. I always figured they'd figure something out. But what we talked about, 2 years ago, obviously, they haven't really added anything since.
No, they haven't. And the insane thing about it is that fact that it's been 2 years and nothing new has come out at all. Now, I had a theory at the beginning of it. This was 2 years ago. This is 2017. Trump is still the new president, and my theory at the time was that this was, like a false flag thing, or not a false flag thing, but like not a staged event, but an operative goes in there to kill a bunch of people because for leftist reasons, where it would be like if Donald Trump flips on his base and calls for more gun control, that'll piss his base off and he'll lose in 2020. But if he doesn't budge on gun control, that'll piss the moderates off and he'll lose in 2020, and we'll get gun control either way. So that was my theory at the time. So I don't know, it's one little thing that I remember from our conversation 2 years ago was I think it was Mike asked me, like, why do you think that? And I said, well, if my end goal was gun control, this is how I would do it. And I remember there was a very awkward, long pause after that.
Yeah, well, that's how Hobbs would do it. He didn't, but this is how he would do it if he had. Very O.J. Simpson-like of you right there. But yeah, that's the thing about this case. Unlike because in the Jeff Epstein case, all right, I think this is what's getting a lot of people to think more conspiratorial now, is the Jeff Epstein thing. Makes no sense whatsoever. Nobody believes he killed himself, but we'll never know the answer. A lot of people are now willing to look back at events like this and think, no, yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Right.
And it's crazy that we never got an official story. In the Epstein thing, we got an official story like right away. He killed himself. That was that. Nobody looked any further into this. But if you remember at the time, people were calling for, like, we're going to get to the bottom of this right away. We're going to know what happened soon. We're going to launch a full-scale investigation. La, 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 and then nothing.
Right.
It just disappeared.
Oh, yeah, we figured it out. He's just a crazy guy. Oh, no, that's the end of the story. Don't look over here anymore.
That was kind of all we got. It's like he was crazy, but that's still not a motive, Because like someone who is just insane, like you belong in a mental hospital. You're just a crazy person, hearing voice, blah blah. It takes a lot of rational thought to transport all those guns up to the top floor of a casino hotel.
Right.
'Cause there's security in those things, and you would have had to take a lot of trips up to do that.
Right.
You can't just freaking run around the hotels yelling and screaming and talking to yourself like a crazy person might. It takes rational thought and effort to do this. So just to say, oh, he's just crazy, it doesn't jive.
Well, here's my theory that I'll evolve from that original episode. I said that, I thought they were posing him. The FBI was setting him up to buy guns and make a big bust. What if, you mentioned Bin Salman up there. What if the people that wanted to kill Bin Salman were posing as terrorists and were part of this patsy operation, and they saw it as an easy way to get a bunch of guns into the hotel and try and kill Bin Salman?
Yeah, there's layers to this that, we'll probably never know. And yeah, at the time, I thought that the possibility existed that that some legitimately good people in like the Las Vegas Metro PD and the FBI knew what happened and were just refusing to release it because at that sort of boiling point that we were and still are in the political climate, they're just like, if we release what this motive is, if this was a crazy right winger that shot up a bunch of people, or this was a crazy left winger that shot up a bunch of Trump people because it was a country concert across the street, that's going to tip off a hot civil war. So we're just going to sit on this and hope it goes away. That was one of my theories at the time too. And I don't know, but I mean, a lot of, coincidences with the Saudis and just the sheer lack of presence that this guy had on anything. He's a ghost until he decides to ghost himself after killing a bunch of people. That's just too convenient.
I see we're all spitballing here. These are all just theories that you throw around that could sound convincing. Nobody knows. There's not even an official story. They never came out and said this was the motive.
Right.
This is why he did it. Nobody even came out and said that. So the fact that we're 2 years later and everyone's just kind of forgot about it's kind of crazy.
Right. But, and we're past an hour now. I just want to maybe end on this note here. It's the 2-year anniversary right now with Democrat presidential candidates seeming to hitch their wagon to the gun control argument, and October 1st being today, being only a month and 3 days before election day next year. How much you want to bet that the 3-year anniversary of Las Vegas is going to be a huge fucking thing next year?
That would be something. That's a long game. That's a really long game to play.
I don't think it's a game. I just think it's going to be something that's going to be very, very convenient next year. It's like, election's a month away. Democrats are like all in on gun control. Here's the single worst individual massacre in U.S. history. Let's kind of
bring it back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to get people riled up about an event so old.
3 years. 3 years really ain't old though.
I know, but there's some shootings that just stick in the public consciousness. Columbine, Sandy Hook. Why am I blanking on the name? The one in Florida. Parkland. These are events that stand out in the public mind for one reason or another. Columbine, because it was one of the first big ones. Sandy Hook, because it was an elementary school. Parkland, because of the activists that came out of it.
Right.
These are ones that stick with people. Vegas has the highest body count.
Right.
And it resulted in the bump stock thing. But does it really stick out in the consciousness the way those other three do? I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either, but I think that's more of an artifact of the fact that it was memory hold so thoroughly everywhere. Like, it was a big story, and now it's gone. But I do think that next year, this time next year, it's going to be because it's an anniversary. That would be another thing that would be an excuse to bring it up again. I mean, yeah, they did get something out of it, the bump stock crap, but an anniversary, a month out from an election of the biggest massacre in U.S. history, and every Democrat politician is talking about assault weapons this and assault weapons that. I think that is red meat that they won't be able to ignore.
Well, and another thing to consider is you remember in the last election where that grab 'em by the pussy take came out right before the election. Like they sat on that to release it at the most opportune time. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if something like that happens again in 2020, where some media outlet or some politician has some info on something and they wait till the last minute to release it or throw a little chaos in at the last minute.
That October surprise.
October, yeah, and then it could be something about the Las Vegas shooting. We'll have to come back a year from now to revisit this to see if there's any updates on it. But I wouldn't hold my breath for that. I doubt there's going to be anything big coming. Maybe there will be. Maybe we'll finally get an official story. But I just think it's been so long, and whatever the fact that they haven't released an official story on this makes me think that, you know, it's just so implausible what they would come up with that they think it's better just to push it to the side and pretend it didn't happen.
I don't think they'll come up with any kind of official story or anything like that. I just think that they'll be focused more on assault weapons, and less about the actual event itself. You know, like they always do, focus on the tools and not the event and the things that led up to the event, which we still have no clue what that is.
True story, man. All right, hey Ben, you got anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
No, I think we covered it all.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's all here. Remember, communism is bad, and Donald Trump shouldn't be congratulating Chinese dictators for what they do. Let's wrap this up. Remember, everybody, like us on Facebook. We're trying to get 10,000 likes by the end of the year, so let's make that happen. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Minds, we're on YouTube, and we're anywhere that you can find your podcast. Thank you for listening, everyone. And remember, stay sane, because the government won't let you if they have the choice. Good night, everyone.